Houston.
Late-night programs will be seen immediately following this brief NBC News special report. Here is Bob Kerr, NBC News.
Good evening. It's probably safe to say that on the first day of 1989, neither George Bush nor Mikhail Gorbachev would have predicted the dramatic events that so changed the world last year. Now, at the beginning of a new decade, the continuing changes in Eastern Europe serve as the backdrop for videotaped holiday messages from each leader. We will bring you the Soviet president's message to the United States, but first, the message sent by President Bush for broadcast on Soviet TV.
On behalf of the American people, my wife Barbara and my family, I bring you our warmest greetings. A new year is dawning around the world, the first year of the last decade of the 20th century. And as the world looks back to 9 decades of war, of strife, of suspicion, let us also look forward to a new century and a new millennium of peace, freedom, and prosperity. Of course, there are no maps to lead us where we are going, to this new world of our own making. We can find our way only through cooperation, beginning with a candid dialogue. It is in pursuit of such a dialogue that I met your president, Mikhail Gorbachev, near the island nation of Malta. Let me share with you some of the matters that we discussed. First, we agreed to redouble our efforts to diminish the horrible threat from weapons of mass destruction and to pursue with other nations an agreement to reduce conventional forces in Europe. Second, we talked about ways we can end regional conflicts and alleviate the terrible toll in human suffering they bring. Third, I want to assure you, as I did your president, that the West seeks no advantage from the extraordinary changes underway in the East. We talked about the magnificent efforts of the people of Eastern Europe to find a free and democratic future. And I told your president that I support the dynamic process of reform in the Soviet Union. We will work together to reduce barriers to trade, investment, and the free movement of goods and ideas. In these ways, and as your economic reforms take place, the entry of the Soviet Union into the global market can be advanced, an historic goal that, once achieved, can improve the life of every Soviet citizen. But it's our belief that lasting peace and prosperity come from a respect for human rights and the sharing of democratic values that are deeply rooted in the human spirit. Your own Leo Tolstoy said that if our hearts are empty, no law or political reform can fill them. The real law lives within our hearts. These values are not exclusively American or Western. They're not the possession of any people or any domain. They belong to all men and women through all time and in all places. They are the inalienable rights of man. Of course, much remains to be done, but the progress of the past year gives me confidence that we're heading in the right direction. In this, President Gorbachev has been a good partner in peace. Given the war-torn history of this century, we should redouble our efforts to forge a new century of peace and freedom. Our nations have produced Abraham Lincoln and Leo Tolstoy, Martin Luther King, Andrei Sakharov, and we persevered as allies in a terrible war. The challenges we face today are no less daunting, but with goodwill and determination on both sides, I am confident our two peoples will be equal to the task. Thank you, God bless you, and have a happy new year.
Dear Americans, on behalf of the Soviet people, I want to convey to you, the citizens of the United States of America, our greetings and a message of hope. 1990 can and should bring us closer to a period of genuine peace in world history. There is still vacillation and uncertainty about it. There are still doubts and suspicions. But all that just goes to show that there has been a real sea change. The whole world is forging ahead in pursuit of happiness, freedom, and prosperity. It would be naive, preposterous, and dangerous to try and stop that quest for a better future. It is our profound conviction that an era of peace is possible. We in the Soviet Union and the United States seem to have made a choice. We have chosen cooperation. At Malta, President Bush and I agreed on the need to go beyond the Cold War, which means that we also have to abolish the tools of the Cold War. If we do so, 1990 and the years that follow will usher in for us a period of real cooperation and greater trust. We shall then begin to build a world that rules out subversion, pressures, or armed interventions that do no credit to arms or to politics. We in the Soviet Union have started to move toward this kind of future. This is the goal of our perestroika. But we are convinced that all societies that exist on Earth are in need of sensible changes. Philosophers and historians affirm that the end of any century is marked by a special psychological atmosphere, a mixture of nostalgia for the past, uncertainty, and even fear of the future and of the unknown, and always hopes for a better life. Yet there is a great difference between people at the turn of last century and of this one. Above all, the difference is that we understand this. The greater our hopes, the more we have to do together to make them come true. I propose that we make the 1990s a decade of greater closeness between the United States of America and the Soviet Union on the basis of universal human values and of a balance of interests. Together with all other nations, let us rid the world of fears and mistrust, of excess and unnecessary weapons, of outdated political concepts and military doctrines, and of artificial barriers between people and countries. 1990 could become a real watershed in arms control and arms reduction. We, for our part, shall do our utmost for that. At the same time, our two countries could do a great deal to further improve the moral and political climate in the world. Undoubtedly, we could thus help the world become a different place, more quiet and more sensible. The 1990s could become the decade of a global and increasingly irreversible advance of freedom, democracy, and equality. You might say that those are familiar truths and eternal values. That is quite true. But today, as we are nearing the close of the 20th century, we are more ready than ever before to make them a reality. So let us work with a sense of purpose and perseverance, and with a belief that they will triumph. I would like to wish all Americans good health and good luck. May your children, and if you have them, your grandchildren, become the happy citizens of the 21st century, which I'm sure will be better than this one, if we join our efforts with that goal in mind. To all Americans, I warmly wish a happy New Year.
Soviet President Gorbachev and President Bush with the videotaped holiday messages they sent for broadcast to each other's countrymen. Both leaders with warm, optimistic thoughts for the new year. Continuing coverage on NBC News at sunrise and the Today Show in the morning. I'm Bob Kerr, NBC News, New York.
This has been an NBC News special report.
And now, stay tuned for the best of Carson. From Hollywood, The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson. This is Ed McMahon, along with Doc Severinsen and the NBC Orchestra, inviting you to join Johnny and his guests from Elko, Nevada, Cowboys Lloyd Gerber and Martin Bergen, comedian Jake Johansson, sportscaster Fred Rogan, plus Doc Severinsen and the NBC Orchestra. And now, ladies and gentlemen...
Late-night programs will be seen immediately following this brief NBC News special report. Here is Bob Kerr, NBC News.
Good evening. It's probably safe to say that on the first day of 1989, neither George Bush nor Mikhail Gorbachev would have predicted the dramatic events that so changed the world last year. Now, at the beginning of a new decade, the continuing changes in Eastern Europe serve as the backdrop for videotaped holiday messages from each leader. We will bring you the Soviet president's message to the United States, but first, the message sent by President Bush for broadcast on Soviet TV.
On behalf of the American people, my wife Barbara and my family, I bring you our warmest greetings. A new year is dawning around the world, the first year of the last decade of the 20th century. And as the world looks back to 9 decades of war, of strife, of suspicion, let us also look forward to a new century and a new millennium of peace, freedom, and prosperity. Of course, there are no maps to lead us where we are going, this new world of our own making. We can find our way only through cooperation.